Okay, so good morning, everybody.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Yeah, I
morning.
feel it's time to start.
Yeah.
Okay, so the agenda is on the screen. The remaining behavioral patterns we are going to discuss about today, starting with memento, followed by observer, then state, strategy, template method, and visitor. So core agenda revolves around this, and that will be the end of the design patterns. Okay, so let's start with the very first pattern for the day, that is memento. Around 5 behavioral patterns we have already discussed in the previous session. What's the meaning of memento? Is it something to deal with memories? Say if I go for some vacation and I just want to preserve the memories, probably I carry some of the artifact from there, which just is like, okay, whenever I see that artifact, I memorize that, okay, I went to this and this so and so place, right?
Yes, right.
It could be something like memories of certain place. It could be memories of certain event, right?
Yes,
Your certificates are also a kind of a memento only, right? So particularly what mementos do to an object is they try to preserve the state of the object somewhere, right? So that you can recall whenever required as per the need. And this is something which needs to be done without violating the encapsulation of the object, but at the same time, it should be able to capture and manage the internal state of the object to an external source or resource. So that even if the object is destroyed and later on recreated, you can restore the state. Like a document is created in Word, say, even if Word basically is closed, even if your machine shuts down, later on, you can just restart Word at any point in time and you can restore that file by using file save and file open operations. So here file open and file save is probably dealing with an external object called as memento, which is taking care of the actual save and open operation. Correct? If it is not externalized, you cannot restore the state because the moment the word ceases to exist, your object will also cease to exist. Yes or no?
yes,
Right? So that's what the memento pattern is all about. Let's have a look at the diagram for the same. Originator is your main object, which possesses the state. Here is the memento object, which works on this state. So it has got get state, set state methods. Get state is basically to restore the state, and set state is to save the state. The memento object is being configured for originator here with set memento and create memento. And then there is a caretaker object which actually takes care of the mementos only, memento instance only. And that is something which makes it an external entity. Okay, let's understand this with an example. So let's open Visual Studio, the same solution we have been working with so far, which has got all the different example projects created for different patterns. Under behavioral, I'll add another new project, console app. Next, with the name as 18 underscore memento. Next, .NET 5 is the platform. Create and remove this console write line statement. And here, I first of all create the class called as originator, the main object. Let's say I have a class named as originator, which has got a single member as of now, which I assume representing state. It can have tens of hundreds of thousands of data members, which will constitute the state. For simplicity, I'm using only one data member as of now. Let's make it private as well so that we can actually see in more readable format the encapsulation in work, right? Then I have the public property for the state. I'm giving the name as state. That doesn't mean this is the only state thing that is always required. This is just a data member. All data members of the object will constitute to the state. Now, all members cannot have the name state, right? This is only for understanding purpose. I'm using this name state. Okay, then I have get, which returns the state. Then I have set, which first of all sets the value to the state. Also, for our understanding, I additionally put state is displayed on the console with the help of console write line statement. So here I go with an interpolated string, which displays me state colon curly brace state. Okay. Then I have a member method which returns the instance of memento. So let's say the return type is memento. The name of the method is create memento. The class memento is yet to be created. That's why the error. You can ignore it for now. We'll be creating the memento class shortly. Here I just have a single return statement which returns me the new instance of the memento class, for which the constructor takes in a single parameter, that is the state object itself. Right, the data members. If I want to pass all the members of this object, I can pass this as well, this keyword instead of state, which will carry all the data members of the class. Make sense? Now this is for creating the memento, and for which takes in a parameter of type memento by the name memento. Here, first I display the message restoring date. And then I say state the property with capital S equals to memento.state. Okay. Now let's create this class memento here. So let's say I have public class memento. Created here. Which has got a private member of its own, which holds the state string, because right now I'm passing string as the parameter. If it is this keyword I'm passing, probably the data member of memento class will be of the type originator. Understand? Then I have the constructor for this memento class, which takes in string state and assigns to this dot state. And then I have a read-only property here that returns me the state. Public string state, which has got get, return, state as the single member for it. And then the last thing that I have here is the class caretaker. Which holds a private instance of memento. As I said, caretaker basically is responsible for the upkeep of your memento object. I have a property here, which is of type memento with the name memento. Get returns memento, set sets the value to memento. Okay. Yes. Now let's go to main method. And here, let's instantiate the original object originator. Let's say I call it as O equals new originator, or let's call it as originator itself. Then I say originator dot state equals to the state value being set to the string on. Then I want to store the internal state so that even if the object is destroyed, I should be able to restore it at any point. For that, I first of all create the instance of caretaker. Caretaker equals to new caretaker. Caretaker dot memento object I'll set first, for which I'll say create the memento for the originator object. Hence I say originator dot create memento. That returns me the memento object, and caretaker memento property holds the same. Then I say O dot state equals to off. And then I want to restore the state. So here I say O dot set memento caretaker dot memento, and that's it. So it should display me the output as state equals to on, state is off, and then probably the message restoring state followed by state equals to on, because here with set memento, I'm restoring the original state which was persisted. And because it is persisted outside the object, it has nothing to do with the changes which are happening over here. Directly the state value being changed, but this is after storing the state, right? So there are two different memory allocations for the state object, and hence the change in one memory location will not affect the other memory location. And that's the benefit of externalizing the state storage. Let's see. As discussed, the output is state is on, state is off, then restoring the state. Despite I set the state to off, after calling the set memento, the state once again displays me on. Is it clear?
Yes.
Just, just go through it and see if you have any queries. This can be used for implementing the undo redo operations also, isn't it? I can have different checkpoints created by saving the state, and then I can say, okay, undo. So whatever operations which have been carried out, whatever manipulations that have happened after saving the state will automatically be cancelled if I say restore the state, which in turn is something we term as undo operation. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes. Right.
Yes.
And we are not actually affecting the internal state of this originator object at all. We are not breaking the encapsulation rule here. We're not giving direct access to this value at any point in time, right? Because both create memento and set memento are being called from within originator only as its own members. They are also providing some sort of encapsulation over this object. We are not breaking any rule, correct? Yes. Let's close this and move on to our next pattern, that is observer. If I talk about dictionary meaning, what is the meaning of this observer?
Observing activity of other objects.
Correct? And providing actions whenever required, right? One
Yes.
typical example is like if you talk about a cricket match, apart from umpires, there sits an official called as match referee who just observes the entire game and the conduct of all the players, including the conduct of umpires also. Am I right?
Yes.
If he sees any wrongdoing, he probably can take action immediately. Again, whether the action is immediate, mid match, or after match, that depends on the severity of the breach, right?
Yes.
So what role this match referee is actually playing? Isn't it resembling observer pattern?
Yes. Right.
Now, where can this feature or this pattern be useful within an application? Whenever you talk about event driven approach to be implemented, probably observer can be by default being used there. Whenever the state of an object is changing, the objects who are subscribed for this particular event will all be notified. In a way, to generalize it, I can say all the objects which are depending on the original object state will be notified, and based on this notification, they can take actions, maybe which might be to update those objects as well. So what you do as an action depends on your application's need and what type of object you have configured as a dependency for the original object, right?
Yes.
Like when I type something in already saved file in Word, even a single keystroke basically results in the file being unsaved, right? So how the file save operation comes to know that the content of file has changed? Probably it is subscribed to the events of that particular document context. Yes or no? Like on change, right? Suppose your document area is actually a big text box. On change event has been subscribed means what? Whenever the content is getting changed, the object, separate object is keeping track of any unsaved changes. Your file is another object. Here, there is a temporary file, which is another object, and then your document is another object, where document is the source. Whenever the contents are changed, automatically temporary file gets a notification, and temporary file automatically starts saving the changes. So that if there is a power loss or something, you can still restore the unsaved changes. Usually you get a prompt. There are some unsaved changes, and if you want to restore, click here. With Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all the three softwares, you get this. Yes or no?
Yes.
Another example from banking domain. Whenever you perform the deposit or withdraw operation on your account is the source object in this case. But then there are other services like email sender. There is another service like SMS sender, with the help of which you get the notifications delivered right to your mobile device that your account has been debited or your account has been credited by so and so amount, and your updated balance is this. Yes or no? These services are not actually the part of your account object. They are externalized services who have a dependency on the state of the balance property of your account. Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? So that's what observer pattern actually is responsible for. Let's have a look at the diagram. Subject is the original object. Probably here this represents the abstraction, which has got the attach detach methods for observer and notify to notify the observer, which has been configured with attach. Concrete subject is the implementation for it, which actually holds the data. Observer is the abstraction for the observer, which probably contains a method which will be called whenever notify is called here, right? And then concrete observer, which is the implementation of the observer abstraction, which ultimately does something based on the changes in concrete subject, right? Now, let's understand this with an example. So back to Visual Studio, Solution Explorer. Right click on behavioral, add new project, console app, next 19 underscore observer is the name I'll use for it. Next, .NET 5, create. Remove console write line statement here and put one using statement on the top. System.collections.generic. We'll be using list class here. Then I first of all create my abstract subject class here. So let's say public abstract class by the name subject is there, which has a private list of observer. There can be one or many observers, right? I mean, independent objects. Observers equals to new list of observers. As observer class is not yet created, we are getting this error. We'll create the observer class shortly. Then I have the member method public void attach, which adds an observer. So it takes in a parameter of type observer by the name observer. And what it does is simply adds the incoming observer object to the list. This should be observer. Similarly, I have detach method, which removes the given observer from the list. So public void detach that takes an observer to be removed. And actually what it contains is observers.remove the given observer. And then one more member was there as per the UML diagram with the name notify. So here I have public void notify, which will be actually sending notifications that I am being changed, means the current object is being changed or the state is being changed. So how do I notify? I simply have to iterate on the entire collection of observers for each, where O for observer, or maybe I can just name it as observer, in observers collection, call observer dot update method to notify. Okay. So here, first of all, we'll create the observer class to get rid of errors. We'll say public abstract class observer, which contains public abstract member named as update, doesn't return anything. So all errors are removed. Yes, but these are all abstractions. The subject class, the observer class, both are abstractions. I need to have the concrete implementations of the same. Yes or no? So here we go and create our concrete subject class, public class, concrete subject that inherits from the abstract class subject. And then has got a private member of its own, private string, subject, state. Let's say this is the member which represents the state data, and there is a property for it. Just say public string subject state get return subject data set subject state dot subject state equals to value. Okay. And then the concrete observer, which contains the implementation of update method into it as well. So here we go for public class concrete observer inherits observer. It has got some of its own data members. Let's say private string name. Then I have private string observer state. Then I have private an instance of concrete subject. There goes a constructor which takes in couple of parameters. First is concrete subject type by the name subject, comma string name, and sets these to the private members of its own. So let's say I go for this dot subject equals to subject, this dot name equals to name. And then let's say override space. So it shows me update method, double click on it, and it automatically gives the complete body. Remove throw new not implemented exception from here. Set observer state here equals to subject dot subject state. Then simulation, which says that, okay, the update method has done something. So I use an interpolated string, which shows me observer, curly brace, name. So name followed by single quote S basically will be appended to it. New state is observer state. And then here I have a property of type concrete subject to return and accept the value for the state. I'll name this as subject. And then I have the get and set members for it. So what get has is return subject, and what set has is subject equals value. Save. Then let's implement the main method. Here I first of all create the actual object. So concrete subject equals to new concrete subject. I attach several observers to it by saying subject dot attach new concrete observer subject comma, let's say some name to it, A. I repeat this 3 times to attach 3 observers with 3 different names, A, B, and C. Then I want to change the subject. So here I say S dot subject state equals to XYZ. And then I say subject dot notify, which will automatically uh, call the update method for all the 3 observers A, B, and C that we have configured. Right? All must display the message. Observers A's state has been changed to ABC. Observer B state has been changed to ABC. Observer C state has been changed to ABC. Let's see. Yes, all of the observers are notified. So let's say this is SMS service, this is email service, this may be some other service, which is updating the balance of the account when you are performing deposit or withdraw operation. Correct? Is it clear?
Yes.
One classic example that comes to my mind is from stock exchange. If you do share trading, if you are using some platform for share trading, you can actually, suppose if you're trying to sell some of your stock or purchase some of your stock and you have put the price that, okay, if the price hits this value, purchase it or sell it, right? Because all the platforms now have got some automation so that you don't need to keep tracking the stock prices all the day, all the time. You might have something in your mind as a target. With your analysis, you have put that already in the software. So whenever the stock price changes, don't you think your condition needs to be checked? Yes. And if it matches, the transaction has to happen. If you have opted for sell, the stock has to be sold. If you have opted for purchase, the stock has to be purchased. Correct? But this will happen if and only if you get a notification that, okay, this stock's price has been changed, because stock's price is controlled by a separate object, whereas your software is a separate object in itself. You need notification, without which this automation won't be possible. Is that clear?
Yes.
One more example, like if I talk about any vehicle, when the engine starts, the piston starts moving. Now, if the piston has started moving or not, how my notification goes to my wheel, which actually drives the vehicle forward or backwards. That's where probably the gears come in. I engage the gear, which starts receiving the notification. It is just like subscribing. Engaging gear means I've subscribed for the piston move event, and after which the vehicle starts moving, right?
Yes.
Now here, your vehicle's wheel has got a dependency on engine, piston, precisely. And the observer in this case probably is your gear. Yes or no?
Yes. Right.
If you engage the gear, but the engine itself is not started, there will not be anything happening, right? So I hope this observer pattern is pretty much clear. Events predominantly uses this pattern on their own, correct? Any questions here? So shall we move to the next one? Okay. So state is the next one. We have used this term state a lot in last few examples, correct? What this actually represents. State is the values assigned to the data members of any object at any given instance of time. Like engine may be on or engine may be off. This is the state of the engine. Correct? Vehicle is running or vehicle is stationary. This is the state of the vehicle. Correct? Me talking or me not talking is state of myself. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
So any specific values assigned to the data members of the object at the given instance of time represents the state of the object. Now the pattern is somewhat related to it. This pattern is responsible for allowing the object itself to alter or change its own behavior when its own state is changed. So far, we have discussed about the similar thing, but where the subscriber probably was a third party object. In this case, what we are saying is the object itself is subscriber of its own. Got my point? Like I'm not feeling well. So my body state has changed from healthy to unhealthy. And in this case, I'll take a call that, okay, I need to visit the doctor to get medicated to cure the condition. In this case, there is no third party object responsible for monitoring my health. It is me who is responsible for the same. Yes, like account object provides me deposit withdraw functionality. I'm calling deposit or I'm calling withdraw functionality. But at this moment, the object's own state has to be changed where the balance of the account needs to be updated to balance plus amount or balance minus amount, depending on deposit or withdraw which method has been called. Yes or no? Deposit, withdraw, balance, all the members are of the same object account. So here it is all about internal matter. Yes or no? Let's understand this with an example. So here we go and add a new project. Console app. Next. 20 underscore state is the name I'll give. Next. .NET 5. Create. Let's remove this console write line statement. And here was my first class, the abstraction basically. So abstract class, let's say I name this as state for our understanding. What it has got is a single abstract member as of now. Ideally, it may have n number of members, right? Abstract void handle takes in a parameter of type context by the name context, a class that we'll be creating shortly. First, I'll create the concrete implementations of the state class. So let's say here goes my first one. Public class concrete state A inherits state, overrides handle method from the abstract class. And what it does is, let's remove this through new not implemented exception and replace it with context.state equals to, let's say, new concrete state B. Let's copy this, paste it here, rename the class to concrete state B. So this error is removed. And here, instead of setting the state to new instance of concrete state B, I'll set it to state A. So basically, I'm going to toggle. If the state was concrete state A, handle has been called, the state should change to concrete state B. It's just like on, off, on, off, on, off. You can consider A as on, B as off. If it is on, then it should be off. If it is off, it should become on. And there goes the context class. So here I have public class context. All the errors will get removed for context. Let's say here I have a private member of type state. Again, a class that we have already defined as abstract class here by the name state. There goes the constructor which receives the state object as its parameter. So here I say state, state, and assigns the same to this dot state property. with capital S. Error is there because the property is not yet created. Let's create one. Public state, state. There goes the get block, which returns the state. There goes the set block, which says state equals to value, and then also displays the message on console with an interpolated string. State colon curly brace state dot get type dot name. So fully qualified name of the class will be displayed, whether it is state A or state B. And then here only I have one more member, that is request. So let's say there is public void request method here. What it has got is the call to the handle method, state.handle, and I pass the current instance there. This is where the internal state comes into picture, right? Okay. Handle method belongs to the state class itself. And current object only is going to receive this. I mean, handle will be called on the current object of the state itself. Okay. Let's complete this by having some code in main. First, I create instance of context equals new context, which takes in the initial state as new concrete state A. Then I say context dot request method is called. Few number of times I'll call this context dot request, again context dot request, one more time, one more time. So here it actually shows me, okay, first it goes here, state dot handle. Now state is concrete state A. Let's see what concrete state A has got. It changes the state to concrete state B. And there, this is going to be displayed. So what it is going to show me? State will be concrete state B. Then again request is called. So then it will display A. Again request is called, it will display B. Again request is called, it will display A at the end. But again, when the context object is getting created, the constructor is also displaying me the name of the state being saved. Because here if you see, the constructor sets it via the state property only. So initially, by default, this is going to be called. So the output will be displayed as concrete state A from here. Then from request, it will be concrete state B, then A, then B, then A again. Let's check out. Here it is. So this is from constructor, then request, then request, then request, then request. First one is constructor, then second, third, fourth, fifth are all from the request method being called directly. Okay. Very much similar to observer, but this is the observer not as a third party object, but an observer for the object itself, internal observer. That is what the state pattern is all about. Is this clear? Yes or no? Any questions here? Okay, just go through the code and see if you have any questions. No questions? So I believe this is clear.
Yes. Right.
Okay, so let's take a break here. We'll resume at 11 and we'll move on with the next pattern strategy, followed by template method and visitor. And as requested in the last session, we will be also discussing about the CQRS pattern, which is not the part of Gang of Four patterns. So I'm putting it separately, the top level. Okay, so let's resume
Yes.
at 11. Welcome back, everybody. Shall we proceed?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So next one is the pattern named as strategy. Strategy is just like maybe some kind of plan. If plan one doesn't work out, we have plan two, the backup plan. If that also doesn't work out, there is another plan, right? Depending on the situation, we decide that which plan will be tried out first. And most likely, if the analysis is correct, the first plan itself should succeed. But in case if it fails, there has to be a backup plan also. That is what we call a strategy. In application design also, the purpose of strategy pattern is somewhat similar. It actually allows you to define the family of different algorithms, which are all encapsulated independently, and they are designed in such a way that they are interchangeable. Based on the context, you can choose any one of them. And this ultimately allows us to vary the pattern or vary the algorithm independently from the actual client that use the algorithm, right? Somewhere it looks like visitor, but there is a common difference over there. If you look at the visitor pattern, basically it depends on the subclassing, whereas strategy is actually not based on completely the subclassing thing, right? The way it is implemented is slightly different over here. Okay, so let's see the diagram over here that will make the picture clear. Here we have the context, the object on which it is going to be used. Here is the strategy abstraction, and then there are concrete implementations. So the common point remains this, and here the strategy can change at any point in time. This context will always be calling the particular strategy with the help of the abstraction only. So it did not know exactly whether it is strategy A or strategy B or strategy C being invoked, right? Okay, so that's how the different algorithms can be developed and added. One very common example could be like if you have built a business application, line of business application, which uh, actually deals with the databases. One product you have created, and you want this product to work on different kind of databases in the backend. There is one requirement where you need to make this application work with SQL Server, another one which works with Oracle, another one which works with MySQL. Though there are a lot of similarities in all these database implementations, but still their drivers are different, and the way how the query reaches to these servers and gets processed, what kind of results come back, there also we have a difference. Correct? So in this case, one common thing that we can imagine is the input is going to be same in all cases. And the final output is also going to be same in all cases. So can't we wrap this in a way that, okay, whenever the client application makes the invocation, it is consistent, but behind scenes, it should depend on the context, which database server has to be communicated. And this context might be set by or set with the help of some kind of configuration also, where the configuration could be coming from some config file or maybe any other external system, right? So that's where the strategy pattern can be pretty useful. This also is useful when your server A is not responding, so you want to talk to server B. You have a backup connection string available. So there also in a way you are actually making use of strategy only. Okay, let's understand this with the implementation. So here we go to Visual Studio, close the existing stuff. Let's add a new project. Console app. Next. We'll name this as 21 underscore strategy. Next. .NET 5 create. Let's remove console write line statement from here. And let's put the strategy abstraction first of all in place. So here we have public abstract class strategy, where we have a single operation as of now to keep the things easy. Public abstract void algorithm. Let's say I call this as algorithm interface. Right? Via which the client application, in our case main, will be interacting with the objects. There goes the first concrete implementation. So I have public class, concrete strategy A that inherits from strategy. Implement the abstract class. Remove throw new not implemented exception statement. Put the console write line statement there. Concrete strategy A dot algorithm interface method invoked. Okay. Then copy this class. Paste it here. Change the name to concrete strategy B. And accordingly, the message over here also changes to concrete strategy B dot algorithm interface invoked. There is one more strategy as per the UML diagram. So here we have concrete strategy C, and accordingly, the message is also changed. Okay. There I need the context class on which the strategy will be invoked. So here goes the class context. And there I have private member of type strategy by the name strategy. To initialize this, I take help from the constructor, public context, strategy, and then sets the strategy parameter to this dot strategy. And then goes the member method named as context interface, which the client is going to invoke all the time without knowing which strategy is going to be called. What it does is simply uses the strategy object and calls algorithm interface method on it. Okay. And then the main method. Let's create a declaration for context type. initially, which will be null. Then I say context is equals to new context with the strategy being strategy A. So I say concrete strategy A goes in as the parameter for strategy. And then I say context dot context interface method is called. Then I create a new instance for context, concrete strategy B, call context interface method on that new object. Then I say context equals new context with new concrete strategy C. And call context.context interface on that as well. As I said, this portion can be taken care of by the configuration system also, right? Which dependency has to be used actually, right? Let's start this. So algorithm interface has been called sequentially from concrete strategy A, concrete strategy B, concrete strategy C, depending on the context that has been created. The first context is concrete strategy A base. Second is B. Third is C. Accordingly, the output came. Yes.
Yes.
One more example that comes to my mind is like when you go for data manipulations and data readings into your application, especially while doing reporting and all, you might need sorting to be implemented at number of times. Now for sorting, depending on the data type of the sort key, we have different algorithms available, like insertion sort, selection sort, bubble sort, etc. Right? Now, some algorithm is more suitable for a data type than the other, and each data type doesn't have the similar algorithm suitable for it. So what we want is we want the sorting algorithm to be selectable based on the context. That is where I can again think of making use of strategy pattern. Yes or no? There can be a abstraction called a sort, and then there can be concrete implementation of it like selection sort, insertion sort, bubble sort, etc. So whichever object has been configured, the sorting algorithm according to that object will be used. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so I hope this is clear.
Yep.
Let's move on. Next one is template method. Now, whenever we use the term called as template, exactly what it is. You use PowerPoint for presentations, right? There also we have templates. In Excel, we have thousands of templates. In Word, we have thousands of templates. In Outlook also, for sending mails, we have thousands of templates. What is that template actually?
Certain type of design that we used.
Correct. So can I say this is like some initial structure which the object possesses, which can be filled in with your requirement, and if required, it can be customized also up to a certain extent. Not 100%, but up to certain extent, right?
Yes.
So structure or skeleton of doing certain thing is what template is. When we talk about the design pattern template method, it actually is a similar thing for code. It defines the structure or the skeleton of an algorithm, like in what way it is going to work, what kind of work it is going to do, what all steps it is going to follow, where the algorithm itself may not be yet decided. But the sequence in which the algorithms are going to be called is pre-decided, right? The steps are pre-decided. What exactly that step does and how it does, that is something which is changeable. But the steps cannot be changed. Is it clear?
Yes.
One example I can give you here, like if you are looking to renew your driving license, there are two ways you can do it. One is you can go to RTO office and submit the physical form with physical document copies. The other one is you do it online, right? Does the process change because of the mode being changed? I mean, does the sequence of the operations or sequence of uh, whatever the process that is being followed, does that change?
No.
It remains the same, right? First, you have to fill the form. You have to put in your photo and signature, right? Then you have to support the additional documents in a proper sequence, like Aadhaar card, PAN card may be required, address proof may be required, right? When you put it in physical format, they're also in the same sequence. You attach it, you staple it, or you attach it with the pen or paper clip, whatever it is. Or else, if you're doing it online, there also you fill the form, you save it, and then in the next step, you start uploading the copies of your documents, right? And then only the scrutiny happens and the approval or rejection is taken care of. It is the same thing which happens during the offline process as well. Yes or no? Exactly how the work is carried out might vary in both cases, but in what sequence the work happens is actually the same, right? Correct? That's what the template method is all about. So ultimately what it allows you is that it allows the subclasses to redefine some of the steps of some algorithm without changing the algorithm structure, means the steps, the actual sequence in which those steps are called. The step itself can be changed, but where that step is involved cannot be changed. Is it clear? Look at this. Abstract class. There is a template method which calls primitive operation 1 followed by primitive operation 2. Now, what this primitive operation 1 and 2 will do and how they will do, that's none of the business for this template method. But the sequence in which the call needs to happen is primitive op 1, primitive op 2. It has to follow that all the time. Got my point?
Yes.
The client will not call the primitive op 1 and 2 directly. Client will call template method only. To make it mandatory, probably template method I'll make public, and primitive op 1 and 2 may be private or protected, because if I'm going for subclassing, I might want primitive op 1 and 2 to be changeable, modifiable. So I might want to make it protected, where virtual definition or abstract definition can be assigned and they can evolve over the time. Yes or no? But the calling will happen via template method one only. The object cannot invoke them directly at all. Understood? Let's understand this with an example. So let's add a new project to our behavioral folder. Console app, next. We'll name this as 22 underscore template method .NET 5 create. Remove console write line statement. Yes. There goes the abstraction first of all, which contains the template method as well. So public class, public abstract class rather, by the name, let's say abstract class. Where I have two abstract members, op1, op2. So public abstract void primitive op1 and public public abstract void primitive op2 are the two operations. And there goes public void template method where I say first one to be invoked is primitive op1, second to be invoked is primitive op2, and let's say there is an empty new line being displayed. I can make them protected as well. That will be the right usage. Okay. Then goes the concrete implementation. So here we go and say public class concrete class A that inherits abstract class, and I implement the same. Both the abstract members are introduced here. Console.writeLine concrete class A dot primitive of one method invoked. Is the message to be displayed? Let's copy this, remove this throw new not implemented exception from here, paste it here, and only one change, primitive of two invoke from concrete class A. Then I copy this concrete class A. I have another concrete implementation by the name concrete class B. Just couple of changes further. Concrete class B primitive of one invoke. Concrete class B dot primitive of two invoked. Okay. Then in main, I say abstract class obj1 equals new concrete class A. I say obj1 dot template method. Same way, I create another object of abstract class by the name obj2 equals to new concrete class B. and then I call obj2 dot template method as well. Save. What is the output predicted from here? Concrete class A dot primitive op1 invoked. Concrete class A dot primitive op2 invoked. Followed by concrete class B dot primitive op1 invoked. Concrete class B dot primitive op2 dot invoked. Right. Let's see. Yes. So here you see main method is not aware of what sequence the operations are going to be called. And in fact, with obj1, I don't have access to those members as well. I have access only to template method only. I can't even see op1, op2 here. The only way I can invoke them is call this method, and this method behind scenes invokes op1, op2 in the proper sequence. Yes or no?
Yes.
Quite useful, right? Like database operation, if we talk about. Without opening connection, I cannot do anything. So first operation has to be connection open. In between, I execute queries. And then at the end, I close the connection. So the sequence has to be like this only. Open connection, perform queries, and close connection all the time. This sequence cannot be changed. I cannot perform operation and then open connection. I cannot close connection and then do the other things. So that's where the template method can help me. Yes or no?
Yes.
I hope everyone understands this.
Yes.
Great. Let's close this and move on to the next one. The last gang of 4 pattern named as visitor. So in general, what is visitor? Some outsider who came to you for some work, right? Now
Yes, right.
imagine this training happening in your company premises instead of online training. You all are in the premises, and with your ID card, you are already having access to your office, right? Will it be the same case for me? I'm an outsider. I'm not part of Quinnox, right? I will have limited accessibility. Yes or no?
Yes.
So can I call myself a visitor in that case?
Yes.
Work that is going to be achieved after the training is totally belonging to Quinnox. Quinnox is the object. You are the members of that object. And I am an external visitor object which comes in, does something, which gives you some knowledge, which you use in your work. I probably not manipulate each and everything directly. I don't have access to. I might give you knowledge, but I will never be working on the code of your applications which you are working on. I'll not be touching the project at all, right? For confidentiality reasons also. Yes or no? You might have some simulation though that will give you some guidance about the problem that you might be already facing. Correct? So limited operations I can do for you or on behalf of you. Even if I'm coming there as a consultant, I might get the access to your project resources and all. But again, each and every part, each and every module of the project may not be put into my hands. Wherever my services are required, only that portion will be put in my hands. Yes or no?
Yes.
Again, for confidentiality reasons, correct? So that's where the visitor pattern comes in. It represents an operation to be performed on the elements or data members of an object. It allows you to define the new operation without changing the class of the elements, or no internal changes allowed for the object on which this visitor operation is going to be working upon. It will always work in a restricted manner. Let's have a look at the diagram. So here we have the visitor as an abstraction. Visit concrete element, visit concrete element. These elements might be actually the part of the object, which is represented by object structure, which has got its own members. Concrete elements, right? This is main composition in which there are members. So ultimately, this visitor needs to do something on this or this element, but in limited capacity, right? So here we have two implementations of the visitor. Visitor 1 does something in one way, visitor 2 does something else in another way. Okay. Now here, probably you might have some kind of approval system also. If someone approves, then only the actual work will be done. Not always, but in case if you need it. In case if you want to control how the things are going to be done. Okay. So let's understand by example. Let's add a new project here. Console app next, and the name will be 23 underscore visitor. Next, .NET 5, create, remove console write line statement. We'll be using the collections over here, list collection basically. We'll have the namespace system.collections.generic imported for that. And there goes the first implementation, which is actually the abstraction for the visitor. Let's say we have public abstract class named as visitor. What it has got is couple of members, both abstract methods, public, abstract, void, visit, concrete, element, A. Takes in concrete, element, A. This is like giving module 1 to be given in the hands of the consultant. Concrete element A is the name of the parameter. Concrete element B being visited. So here parameter is concrete element B by the name concrete element B. We need the concrete implementations of the visitor class. So here I have public class, concrete, visitor 1. that inherits from visitor. Implement the abstract class. Remove throw new not implemented exception. Replace that with console write line statement that displays me an interpolated string. Concrete, it should be in curly brace. Concrete element A dot get type dot name is visited by curly brace. This dot get type dot name. Copy this console line statement and remove this throw new not implemented exception first. Paste the copied line, change it to look like this. Concrete element B dot get type dot name is visited by this dot get type dot name. Let's copy this concrete visitor one. Paste here. Change the name to concrete visitor 2. Rest all the things remain the same. Just two different visitors are there now because these are two different implementations. Instead of having redundant code, I may have two different versions. I mean, two different type of codes, different algorithms, right?
Yes.
Here goes the abstraction for the element class. So let's say public abstract class element is there. What it has got is a single abstract member, a method void accept, which is for accepting the visitor or setting up the visitor. Okay. And then goes the implementation for this. So here we have public class concrete element A that inherits from element, implements element abstract class, remove throw new not implemented exception from here, replace it with visitor dot visit concrete element A this. I might have some helper methods also created over here or additional methods which the concrete elements have of their own. Let's say something like this, public void operation A. That is totally on this element. It may or may not have this. So for the time being, I'll keep it empty. Let's copy this concrete element A class and paste it here, change the name to concrete element B. And here we say visit concrete element B. Okay. And then this operation, let's say, is a different operation. So I call this as operation B. Okay. And then comes the actual object, which will have the elements as its members. So I have a class named as object structure. Which has a list of element type, which is an abstraction. So with covariance, the elements can be of any type. Element A, element B, anything. I get it initialized as well. New list of elements. There I have the method to add elements. So public void attach takes an element of any type and simply adds it to the list. Elements dot add element. Same way I have detach method. Public void detach element. What it does is it removes the element, given element from the list. And then we have public void accept visitor by the name visitor. Iterates over the entire collection for each element in elements, element dot accept the visitor. So once the visitor is accepted, the visitor will start performing its actions. If you see what accept method is actually configured for, depends on which concrete element object has been passed. So concrete element B accept method calls visit concrete element B, whereas concrete element A calls visit concrete element A. And here are the methods, right? So this is like, this is employee one, this is employee two, and visitor is represented by me as a third party object. So once you accept that, okay, now proceed. So if I've come to meet employee one, I'll be redirected to employee one. It's just like that. Let's compose the main method here now. So we start by creating the instance of object structure class obj equals new object structure. We say o dot attach, obj dot attach, new concrete element A. Let's say this object has got two elements to it, A and B. So obj dot attach new concrete element B, where obj is Quinnox and attach is like attaching employees. Then there are two visitors who have come. So concrete visitor one, V1 equals new concrete visitor one. Let's say visitor one. Similarly, I create visitor two of type concrete visitor two. Then I say obj dot accept visitor one, obj dot accept visitor two, and that's it. There can be two different objects accepting visitors, right? Depends on the need. So what is the output predicted here? As per the console write line statement and the sequence in which we have configured the things, it should be concrete element A is visited by concrete visitor 1. Concrete element B visited by concrete visitor 1 from here. Similarly, concrete element A visited by concrete visitor 1, and then concrete element B visited by concrete visitor, right? Let's see. That is the output. Yes. Understood?
Yes.
Any questions? Just check the code, go through the code once and see if you have any query. Yes, any query? No queries?
No.
Okay, so shall we proceed to the next thing?
Yes.
Okay. So this last pattern that we created, visitor, was the last one in gang of 4 patterns, right? So that finishes our GUF design patterns. Let's move on to the requested pattern CQRS. So first of all, here we need to understand what CQRS stands for. CQRS is actually an acronym for command.
Command query responsibility segregation.
Yeah, so command and query responsibility segregation. If you look at this full form of CQRS, it speaks a lot about itself. Command and query segregation. What this pattern seems to be related to. This is precisely related to the database operations. There is a popular acronym that we use pretty often, CRUD, which stands for create,
Create, retrieve,
yes,
update, and delete.
retrieve, update, delete, right? And where do we use this? Usually while working with databases, correct?
For
Create is
accessing
more of
database.
insert statement, retrieve is select, update is update statement, delete is delete statement. And within the application scope, this comes into picture when we implement the data access layer most of the time. Am I right?
Yes.
Now focus on the data access layer. Exactly what all kind of code goes in there. All database operations. So all operations, including your insert, update, delete, select, all the statements in one single class for a table or group of tables, right? Depending on your need. Now, table can be the actual physical table, or it can be a virtual table represented by views. Am I right? Now, in this case,
Yes.
if we go with some sort of role-based behavior, there are few things which don't look like going with the role-based behavior. We are modifying data and we are reading data. These are two different operations. Read operation and write operation, correct? Single responsibility principle, if I talk about, that seems to be being violated here up to certain extent, if not completely. Correct. So if I'm looking for single responsibility, ideally the write operation should be separate from read operation. So I can have different experts having different expertise working on the different areas or different responsibilities. So that's where the CQRS pattern comes in, which says the modification or write operation should be different and the read operation or query operation should be different. That's what the name command and query responsibility segregation is. Command is actually like insert, update, delete. Those are commands, whereas select is a query. We are asking something, so that is a query. We are ordering something, insert, update, delete are orders. That is command. So this pattern actually focuses on segregating the command and the query into two different object implementations. This allows the scalability to go to the next level depending on the need. Usually insert, update, delete operations are pretty less compared to that of the read operations in any application, right? Now I need better scalability with read operations. Read operations are more resource intensive as well. So it becomes even more important to have better scalability. Whereas insert, update, delete operations usually are single operations at a time, maybe affecting one or very few number of records being affected. Insert is always one. Update and delete might affect multiple records, but that is also limited. So scalability may not be the first level requirement for command operations. So why should I have the same sort of scalability strategy implemented for all commanding and querying operations? So if I'm following CQRS pattern, I have implemented commands in one object and queries in another object that will allow me to have different scalability configurations for the two set of objects. Yes or no? Right? So
Yes.
here, first advantage I'll list down: independent scaling or scalability. Next is something where if you see, insert, update, delete usually works on one single table at a time. Whereas your select statement might be querying one table, 100 tables, or 1000 tables at the same time with joins, subqueries, etc. Yes or no? I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
select statement usually uses different database schemas. It might involve views also, whereas insert, update, delete will be always the same thing. So the second benefit that we get with CQRS is optimized schemas for the operation that we are doing. Command operations might be working with single table schema, simplified one, whereas the query operations might be working on complex schemas. This also adds more encapsulation and which helps in the next feature, that is enhanced security. I'm not talking about authentication authorization. I'm talking more about the control. Like if I have two different operations, now two different operations represented by two different objects, the authorization for two different objects can be set according to which role the user belongs to. If I have configured everything in one single object, an object level permission says that, okay, this user is allowed to do or allowed to use this object and its members. So by mistake, some unwanted user might end up modifying database who is not authorized. So if I have two different objects, I have clear cut control on who can do what. Am I right? Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Next is less complexity or reduced complexity. How? Read and write operations are two different operations in two different objects. So I have very, very focused, very, very flexible and maintainable code in each of the objects, right? Different business logic can use different objects as per the need. So the integration will also be much more simpler. Memory utilization will be more optimized that way as well as a side effect, which is for good. Correct? And next is simpler queries. This is specifically for query operation or read operation. What I can do is I can have very complex query depending on multiple tables, which usually will require multiple joins. Instead of that, I can create a materialized view which stores the data also into it by running the query when it is created and storing that data into itself so that whenever someone wants to read that data, it need not run the join based complex query every time. It just provides the data that it has stored. That is what materialized view is. So that way, the query will be as simple as select asterisk from view name. And because the data is already available in one place, it will be a simple read operation. It will be quick as well. Simpler and faster queries, I'll say. Correct? Understood? Have a look at this diagram. So it clearly shows you the commands and queries being segregated. Here is the commands, here is the queries. Direction itself is different, right? So they can be two different objects also. Correct? Let's go for the example here. Let's get back to Visual Studio, take a new project this time. Console app only I'll take. Next, I'll name this as TS underscore demo. CQRS. Next, .NET 5 create. Remove console write line statement. It will not be a fully workable solution. So just a kind of a template to guide you how the things are going to work, right? So let's say I have different folders created over here to represent different sections of my project or different modules. So let's say my first folder is named as commands. Next is named as DTOs. I'm working with databases, so most likely this is something which I have to use. Then I have another folder. DTO stands for data transfer objects, right? If I'm following MVC architecture, I might have models also. Then queries, like commands. I have all the classes querying the data going in here. I might be using repository pattern as well, which is actually one of the need these days to disconnect your database logic from its underlying actual physical database. So let's say here I have the repositories and repositories folder. Got it? Okay. So let's say we start with commands or the write module first, and it starts with repository at the beginning. So right click on repositories, add a new item. Let's name this as I employee commands repository. I employee commands repository. Okay, better to click on show all templates here if this is not visible by default. The reason why I did this is because I want an interface to be created. So select interface, and there I give the name I employee commands repository. Add. Make the interface public instead of internal. And what it has is for now a single member that doesn't return anything by the name save employee. I can have update employee, delete employee also if required. That takes in employee object, employee, employee. For this, we'll require a namespace to be imported using cs underscore demo cqrs dot models. As in models folder, we are going to create the class called as employee as a model class. Right. So creating it in models folder means ultimately it will be a namespace also created by the same name, just like this. But now you can ignore this error. Okay. Or for the time being, we can actually go to models folder, right click, add class by the name employee, add, and make the class public. I'm not writing the members as of now, just a dummy employee class has been created, and that should resolve all the errors here. Correct? Next, under repositories only, I again right click, add class by the name as employee commands repository. That will implement the previous interface. Make the class public. Import the namespace for model using ts underscore demo cqrs dot models. I make this class implement our employee commands repository. Over on it and using the light bulb, implement the interface. Save employee comes in here. But now I just keep it empty. Remove that throw no, new not implemented exception. Understood? Then I want queries or read module also to be created. So for that, here first of all in DTOs, I create an object. So right click on DTOs, add class. Let's name this as employee DTO, which will be mapped to the backend database tables. The structure of backend database tables and the model classes in your application may or may not be same. That's why we usually maintain two copies. One as DTO or data transfer object and one as model, which just works throughout the application layers. Whereas DTO works at the repository and the data access layer only. Make this class public. And then go back to Solution Explorer under queries. Let's say add new item. I'm looking for an interface. Select interface. Let's name this as I employee queries. Add. All queries ideally must go here. Make the interface public. Import the DTO namespace. I'll say using ts underscore demo cqrs dot dtos. And what this interface has got is a single member that returns me an object of type employee DTO. The name of the method is find by ID that takes in an integer parameter int employee ID or just ID. Okay. Okay. Then let's right click on repositories. Add class. Let's name this as employee queries repository. Add. Make the class public. Import the namespace models. Okay. Let's assume we have created an interface called as I employee queries repository, just like I employee commands repository. I implement that interface over here, which contains public method that returns employee object, the model get by ID, int employee ID, and returns a new employee with the data filled into it. Ideally, here you will be using the object initializer to fill the data, or maybe the code which reads the data from the database, gets the employee object, the model initialized and returned back. So for now, I'm just saying it returns the employee object, which contains the data already. Okay, now see, this interface is yet to be created. Copy the name, right click on repositories, add new item. I'm looking for an interface by the name I employee queries repository, add. Make it public. Import cs underscore demo cqrs dot dtos. In fact, this will be models, not DTOs. What this interface has got is a member that returns employee object by the name get by ID, takes in int employee ID. You can see the error over here is removed. Right? Then I go back to queries folder and add a new class by the name employee queries. Import some namespaces here. CS underscore demos, CQRS dot repositories, followed by CS underscore demo CQRS dot DTOs. Okay. Make the class public. Here I have private member, which is read only as well. Means it will be constant for the entire lifetime, except that it can be initialized once in constructor. It is of type I employee query repository by the name underscore repository. There goes the constructor, which initializes this member. So here I say I employee queries repository parameter with the name repository is accepted and gets assigned to underscore repository. Here I have public method, which returns me employee DTO. The method name is find by ID that takes in int employee ID. Reads the employee object by saying var emp equals underscore repository dot get by ID employee ID and returns the new instance of employee DTO object based on the values of employee class or employee class members. It does a transformation. Understood? So, see, overall, this is nothing different as such from the typical repository pattern and all. Just that in regular repository pattern, we put all read write operations together. What CQRS says is, no, let's segregate the commanding operations from the read operations. Probably if you are building this as a service, as a web API or some web service or something, these can be two different services altogether for which the scalability and the hosting environment can be different, making it highly scalable. Understand?
Yeah, Saket, on
Yeah.
line number 24, there will be
Yes.
written EMP, right? Whatever we have got from that
Our
repository.
return type is employee DTO, and employee DTO is a different object than employee class.
Okay, it is written in employee. So we need to
Right.
actually
Transform.
map that one.
Correct. So there are mapping classes also available already. There are a number of NuGet packages which do that, right? Instead of we manually writing the code for the same. Mappers is what we call them, right?
Auto mapper.
Auto mapper. Auto mapper is the specific implementation. But
Yes.
then there are hundreds of types of mappers which are available.
Oh,
Auto mapper is just one of that, correct?
yes.
Okay, so that's what we are doing here. I hope you understood exactly how the composition is going to look like. It's not different. Code wise, it's not different from what you must be already doing with the regular implementation. It is more of a mindset where we need to have two different compositions for the commanding and the querying operations. We need to split that so that role based or responsibly based objects will be there. Both objects can be composed as different services, and those different services can be hosted on two different environments with different scalability settings. Correct?
Yes. And we from controller,
Yeah,
we are calling the employee queries, means
correct,
through that
correct. So
object
one
we are.
controller will call queries, one controller will call commands. So two different controllers means two different APIs will be there. Got my point?
Means we have employee controller, right? So within
Correct.
employee controller we have get, post, put, delete, and all. So
Mhm.
within that employee controller we are having the two objects for the
Right,
queries as
right,
well and commands as well. Means it
correct,
is
correct. Based
okay.
on the need.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that is it. Let's meet on Wednesday for the further things. Okay. I hope you enjoyed the session today as well. So just see if you have any queries, we will take it up that as well. You have my contact details already. You can keep on posting your uh, queries on the same contact details. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Sabir, what
that's
will we
it.
cover next session?
Sorry.
Next session, what we are going to cover?
Okay, I need to actually plan it. I need to once again go through the agenda because till now it was all about the patterns. Uh, till today it was already in plan. Just hold on, I'll just confirm that also.
Yeah.
Yeah, just give me a moment. So it will be more on the unit testing. Okay, next couple of sessions.
Okay. And .NET Core, basic of .NET Core, maybe going to cover on this training module, right?
Yes. So before we start with in fact. What we can do is we can prepone the .NET Core basics first, then we'll go for the APIs, then we will go for the unit testing. That will be better sequence because the agenda has got a sequence which is little jumbled up. Let me replan that. So next session will be on .NET Core basics, the application creation and all, including the web applications also. Next to that, we'll be going with web APIs. And once we are done with web APIs, we'll get with the unit testing. Okay.
Yep, makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, that will be better sequence. Okay. So, okay then. Bye bye for today. See you on Wednesday, 9:30.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.